hugging, fighting, kissing. These are all interactions that as an artist you will eventually have to draw or probably want to draw. And because of one of my lovely supporters, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but they challenged me and they said, you know what, I want to see you draw more than one person. And I was like, you actually kind of clocked my tea a little bit, because I never draw more than one person. Literally, it's either a portrait or it's one person just standing. So today I was like, you know what, I can do that. And after about a week of like learning and teaching myself a bunch of different tips, I'm gonna show you guys how I managed to go from just drawing one little person to then drawing a group of people. So let's get into the video. So this video is pretty much, or not video, but all of these drawings are going to be pretty much broken up into the same basic steps, and that's going to be the shape, the motion, and then finally the anatomy. And the reason why I put the anatomy last, because I feel like if you get the first two wrong, the anatomy will essentially be wrong, but if you get the first two right, then the anatomy should be like a-okay. I'm starting out with something that is like seemingly easy, and it's just these two people that are kind of like, I guess, leaning in on each other and just creating this really interesting shape. Now, I literally came up with this entire method or these steps as I was drawing this, because I thought, what do I break down art into when I go to draw? Especially more complex art. I kind of have portraits down to at least a science up until now, like as good as that I am. I think I can draw portraits well. But when it comes to like heads, when it comes to like bodies, I think that's when things get a little bit more complex, because I may not draw them as much. So because I don't draw them as much, I'm like, well, how would I, if I were trying to make this process as easy as possible? So this first step that I did was with the purple, and as you can see, I'm just drawing out the entire silhouette, and then I go in with the arrows that you see me do, and that's pretty much the motion aspect of it. So first it was the shape, then it was the motion, and now I'm finally getting into like the actual anatomy of it. And this is kind of like a super easy, and I think pretty like beginner friendly breakdown of everything. I was kind of jumping the gun a little bit. As you can see, I forgot to do the whole anatomy aspect, but this step, in my opinion, is essentially just to like make sure my understanding of what I drew before is correct. Now, I definitely need to brush up on my anatomy. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, like I really think my anatomy needs some work. I feel like I go like in and out of like understanding and thinking it looks good, but every now and then I'm like, I probably should really like sit down and study it and like actually get back into that, because I feel like I used to study it all the time, but then I never really drew people that much. I feel like whenever I study a lot, I don't draw as much, because I feel like the studying takes me out of it. But I'm gonna get back into it more. I've been watching a lot of more like TV shows, like the Arcane just came out, so I was like, ooh, let me get on that. But I think like I have a basic understanding of it, and that's why I'm able to create something that is visually right, even though I think when you look at it a little bit closer, I'm like, ooh, this is a little bit off, especially when I got the reference photo right there on the left. I think if I didn't have the reference on the left, it would be like less noticeable that stuff is off. But because the reference is right there, by the time I got to the end of it, I feel like I'm like, ooh, I definitely could have fixed some things like here and there. And also I want to study more anatomy, because it's like I find myself not lacking in understanding in certain things. Like I've been doing a couple of drawing your outfits challenges, or like drawing your outfits. I saw Narami do a few of them and a couple of other creators that I liked, and I went to go do some, and I'm like, I don't understand like how the foot is supposed to go, because for some odd reason I can't just do the pose that I'm doing. I want to do a more dynamic pose. I don't know, I just like dynamic poses. So the one that I'm doing right now, I'm like, I don't understand how the foot is supposed to even look. Like I know feet are weird, but I'm lacking in understanding here, and I feel like when something like that happens, it kind of like makes me want to study that thing. So hopefully you guys are kind of like that too. When you're trying to draw like groups of people, like you obviously know that there's something there that you're missing. So hopefully you kind of go back and study it more. But I think this breakdown that I gave myself, I'm now like, oh, okay, like, yeah, like I get it a bit more, and I will definitely find myself drawing like bigger groups of people, at least people that are touching. I feel like when they're not touching, you can kind of get away with just like drawing someone and then maybe like sticking it next to another person. But I think like more genuine interactions or interactions look a bit more genuine when they're like touching, if that makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, this is pretty much me doing a bunch of like accessory stuff, like beyond the actual studying of like how the people are touching. At this point, I pretty much have it down, like the people are already touching, but I kind of wanted it to look really nice for the video at least, and just for myself, because I did post this on my Insta, shameless plug. So yeah, I was just like, I wanted it to look nice, look like the reference photo, and I've had this reference photo for a while now, so I was like, I should do it some justice and like actually like finish up the sketch. And that's like literally pretty much what I'm doing here, as you can see. Oh my god, but clothing too. Clothing is something I definitely need to add to my visual library, man, especially when it comes down to rendering. I'm like, Lord, I'm so bad at like rendering clothes. It's like actually horrendous. But then I'm like, am I? Or am I just like, do I just want to hate my art? Because you know, like artists, like they tend to like not like their art as much as they like other people's art. Like I think I have good art, but then I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, oh my god, also Ibis Paint like crapped out on me, but the drawing did get finished. I'm gonna show them closer at the end. But yeah, Ibis Paint just said F you, closed out, and then it didn't get any of the like end process of it. So that I just finished it and just made it look cute. And now I'm moving on to the next one. So as you can see, I'm putting this box. Box is just the silhouette. I do with the silhouette method with every single thing that I draw. I think it's just way easier. There was this artist that I saw when I first started my TikTok account, and when I first started getting back into like posting my art or just doing more art in general once I got out of high school. I can't remember their name, but they had said in a video, they were like, draw the silhouette first and then fill the silhouette in. And 4 years later, I am still doing that with like everything that I draw. Like, I don't know, I feel like when you like are in school, they teach you such a different method of drawing that I had to almost unlearn that and then teach myself a totally different way of drawing. So yeah, now everything gets a silhouette. That's why I always put that as like my first step. Here I'm just calling it shape, but it's really just the silhouette of the drawing. Then I added the arrows in super quick just to show the direction that everyone's going in. This part is super important because I keep forgetting like to like add in the motion, and I keep forgetting to add in that into the drawing, so like everything's just kind of a little bit off. You'll probably see closer at the end. It's like things are not touching the way they need to be touching in order to make this look like how it looks. Like, yeah, I think it looks fine on its own, but I get kind of stuck in the details. So I was a little bit annoyed at myself that I kept getting things like wrong, but I think it did end up like cute in the end. And obviously like you understood what you were looking at and the idea of the pose was there, and I think that's the most important part when it comes to studying, like not really getting too boggled down with the details and just kind of getting the understanding of what you're drawing down as best as possible. So don't be like me, don't be an overthinker like me. Just like do it as quickly as possible, make a bunch of mistakes, and then go back and refine them later. Now this is just the final step. I think I'm using like a gray color. I try not to use black for my line art. It kind of just depends on, I guess, the style, but here lately I've been trying not to get into black. Oh, and this is super important. The bigger the group of people gets, if they're touching, you have to make sure that those shapes are apparent. I kept drawing them in because I kept trying to remind myself what I was drawing. But yeah, it's just like the negative space where the bodies are touching. As long as I think that is right, then your drawing will look way better and look closer to the reference photo, and it'll also kind of make for a more interesting end result. So just make sure to keep those shapes, and I'm constantly like trying to remind myself to add those as well, because I do forget, and sometimes when the shape is off, the pose I think can be a little bit off. So just like be mindful of that as well. Also, there were 4 people in this photo. This is the cast of, what is her name? Good Girl or Middle Girl or something? I cut out the dude named Schmidt because I feel like he didn't add much to the photo. I think the photo was way more interesting without him. Like, no hate or anything to the character. I just thought it looked way better without him, and I only needed 3. I didn't need 4. 4 is at the end. But for this photo specifically, I was like, I'm just cut him out and just do the 3. So sorry, Schmidt, but you were not needed for this video. This was giving me like so much trouble. It was giving me so much trouble. Like, I just kept getting it wrong. I don't know why. Like, nothing was close enough, and then when it was close enough, it like wasn't far enough, and I was like, I don't know where I messed up at, but I could not figure it out. Like, I think it ended up working out in the end, but I was like, what is wrong? Like, I could not figure it out like at all, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, it looks right, but it's wrong. Like, it felt wrong as I was drawing it, but I think it looks right. So I was like, I'm gonna just go off vibes, and hopefully that works out too. And I pretty much do the same thing as the first drawing, and I'm just finishing it up here. I thought it was interesting to look at, so I left it in the video. Hopefully y'all like it. But yeah, I'm just like making it look nice, adding all the clothing folds and things like that. Then once I finished this one with 3, I was super confident. I added in all the lines as a reminder. I went on to the 4th drawing. Now this was ambitious, but I really liked it. I really like Atarashi Gakko. I like the way they do their posing. It's super dynamic and it's super interesting to look at. So I immediately went in and I just started planning everything out. I took heed of my negative space and I knew I needed to keep that when I was drawing it. And then honestly, I just let my hand do what my hand does best on and just go. I was just drawing. Like literally, I started out with the silhouette, obviously. Then I made sure to keep the arrows in the back of my mind and be mindful of the motion, because with a complex shape like this, I feel like it can look a bit muddy. So making sure the negative space and the direction in which everyone's bodies are going is super important, just to kind of keep it fluid, but also make it make sense, if that, you know what I mean? Like sometimes like the hand, like I found myself drawing the wrong hands. I was like, this is not the right hand for the right person. So I was really like trying to like really look I'm rambling, but I was just trying to make sure everything looked right and not look too muddy, because it's muddy on its own. Like the photo itself is kind of confusing. So I was like, I hope the drawing is able to read well, but also not look too like insane. Because it was like a little bit more complex, the first round of sketching also involved, I wouldn't even necessarily say like anatomy, just kind of like a nice body placement, or like an okay body placement. By the end, this changes a lot because it's like a super rough sketch, but I found myself not wanting to get confused, so I just laid down like a super rough sketch. I kind of added in the step 1 and step 2 together just on the first round of sketches, and then on the second round of sketches I went in and I did the exact same thing again just to refine it. But here I like this method of sketching where it's like a super loose, super rough idea down first, and then you just go back in, lighten it up, lighten the opacity, add another layer, lighten that opacity, and just keep going until you build to the place that you want. I find that here lately that's just what's been working best for me. Obviously everyone has their own way of going about a sketch, so just do what you do best, but this is what I found works for me. This second round of sketches is like kind of like the cleanup, and it looks a little bit better than the first one, but I wouldn't say it's like the final, and it isn't necessarily like set in stone, but it gives me a better idea of all of the things that I put down on the first and or second round as well. In order to kind of like trick myself into thinking this is easier to draw than it probably actually was, I drew the tops of everyone's bodies, because that was like the only thing that really was hard. Like I just kind of drew everyone's head in, then I drew everyone's torso, then I drew the arms in, just to kind of like add it all together like a puzzle. And then the last piece of the puzzle was the skirt, and then obviously the legs would be like the final piece. And I felt like when I did that, it kind of just made everything way more easier than I think. I don't know, I literally don't know any other way I would have done this. Like that's the crazy part. Like I think I went about this in the perfect way where I couldn't imagine myself doing it any other way. It's like, it's literally 8 hands here, 4 different people, they're all going in a million different directions. I think I did exactly what should have been done. Honestly, it made the process so much easier. Before I got done this final round of like sketch, I made sure to be mindful again of the negative space, and then I went on to do just a bunch of random stuff and just kind of make all their faces look like them. I was struggling a little bit with likeness, but I think by the end of it, it looked good. Even though this video isn't about like faces and stuff like that, I do really like to draw people in portraits, so I kind of am always trying to improve that, at least like it's like in a style standpoint. So I like the way their faces turned out, and I just wanted to include this part in the video before I ended up just finishing everything. And because my second round of sketching was like the cleanup of the first one, this was like the ultimate cleanup of the second one, and I was pretty much just kind of like picking out the best lines that I liked and finalizing them. Also, I've been doing this thing as well where I double line things, and I think that makes it look a bit more visually interesting once I'm all done, as well as adding a little bit of line weight too. So definitely take that into account when you're doing it. If your drawing looks a little bit boring, it probably needs a little bit of line weight and a little bit of line variation. You'll be alright. I don't know how long this ended up taking me, but I am really happy with the result, and I hope you guys go out there and do a little bit of art today, get a little creative, and I really hope this video was helpful. Also, comment something down below. I'm gonna try my best to do whatever I can to get it done, and shout out to you for the comment. I really appreciate it, and it definitely challenged me, and I'm really excited to see what I'll be doing in the future. I have a couple exciting videos I think coming up, so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, also happy holidays as well.